Hey guys, in today's video I'll be doing another tropical update on the Atlantic. And as you can see, looking at the National Hurricane Center's website and checking and seeing what they're monitoring right now, you can see Laura is continuing to die off. It is trying to now curve towards the east and cross the rest of the eastern U.S. towards the Atlantic. But I believe now this is the final advisory that the NHC put out, and this actually advisory was put out by the Weather Prediction Center. But anyway, its last advisory for Laura was 30 miles per hour, pressures at 1,001 millibars. It's moving east-northeast at 20 miles per hour, so it's going bye-bye. We can wave Laura goodbye, and that this storm is now history. And now really those areas in southwestern Louisiana now have to try and recover pretty quickly because, well, one of these systems could potentially go towards the Gulf Coast. We'll see. But what's really fascinating, actually, today about both these systems is that this second disturbance that's farther east has a medium chance of development already. It has a 40% chance of development within the next 5 days. Now, what it says for the second disturbance, it says, another tropical wave is located over the eastern Atlantic Ocean just west of the Cabo Verde Islands. The northern part of the wave, which should move rapidly westward over the central Atlantic during the next few days, is not forecast to develop, as it is expected to remain in an unfavorable environmental conditions. However, the southern part of the wave is expected to be nearly stationary south of the Cabo Verde Islands for the next several days, and some development of the system is possible early next week when it begins to move slowly westward over the eastern and central Atlantic. So that's very fascinating. That farther east wave kind of apparently splits in two, or at least the bottom half of the wave is the part that actually could become a tropical system. That's quite fascinating. Now, this farther west one that's currently already in the central tropical Atlantic, it has a 20% chance of formation within the next 2 days and a 30% chance of formation within the next 5 days. And it says a tropical wave located about 850 miles east of the Windward Islands is producing a disorganized area of showers and thunderstorms. Some gradual development of the system is possible during the next several days, while it moves westward at about 50 miles per hour toward the eastern Caribbean islands. So yeah, as you can see, it will continue if we actually look at the 5-day gradual development tropical weather outlook. That farther west system in the central tropical Atlantic will continue to move west as it has been doing and go into the Caribbean. So we could have another Caribbean system maybe. We'll have to probably wait still. We'll probably have to wait until next week to really see if actually either of these systems do form. Now, this system does have a bit higher of a chance of developing, though it's not exactly supposed to strengthen at all or form at all in the next 2 days. Neither is this system, but it has a higher chance within the next 2 days than this system. But you can see this system's area, this second disturbance's area of potential development is as it gets towards the northern central part of the tropical Atlantic. So that'll be very, very fascinating to watch and see how these two systems progress. Now let's go to tropical tidbits and let's look at the forecast models and see what each of them are showing. Now let's go to the North Atlantic so we can get a wide view of everything that's going on. Now, this area is the first disturbance, and back here is where the second disturbance is. Now, as we move this farther out in time, you can see that second disturbance starts to head into the Caribbean Sea, but the GFS model, this is the GFS I'm showing you right now, isn't exactly picking up on it doing much of anything. Now, with that second system, it stays stationary and then finally starts to moving into about a week from now, within the next 7 days, starts to finally move and go into the central tropical Atlantic and western tropical Atlantic, and then will continue towards the west. And currently, the GFS is showing it like getting sucked up into more of a frontal area and getting sucked out to sea because of that. We'll have to see how that progresses. It could barely dodge that and could continue to the further west and continue more to the west and not curve more towards the north and get closer towards the east coast. So that could happen. We'll really have to see what occurs, but that is what the GFS is showing. Nonetheless, the GFS in general, if we just look at it through the rest of the run, it does kind of show a decent amount of activity for the Atlantic in general. So that's very, very fascinating. You can see there's like a bunch of tropical waves that continue to come off Africa. There's a lot of precipitation out in the Gulf and Caribbean. So with any amount of help, that can really start to become something tropical. But right now, let's not focus on that kind of stuff. Let's just focus on those two those two disturbances that could maybe become our next named systems. Now let's look at the ECMWF model. This is the European model, and as we move this farther out in time, you can see it's not exactly showing anything for that first disturbance, but that second disturbance, which is very, very fascinating, has it curving way out to sea way earlier, but it has it kind of as two separate areas of decently tight vorticity and then kind of merging a bit into one as it's curving way out to sea. And then there's this area of tight vorticity coming off of Africa a bit to the north or right near the Cabo Verde Island, so that'll be interesting to see. That's something to potentially watch. So the European model is picking up on both those systems. Not so keen. This models don't seem all that keen on showing that first disturbance that's farther west in the central tropical Atlantic becoming anything, but for the second disturbance in the far eastern Atlantic, they are showing it potentially becoming something, and we'll just have to see if it'll amount to anything or be potentially going to be impactful towards the U.S. Now let's go to the CMC model. This is the Canadian model. And let's go to show you the precipitation. And as we move farther out in time, it does show you that it's not showing anything as well for that first disturbance. But that second disturbance shows it winding up pretty... what the hell? Hold on. What is going on? Okay, anyway, let's bring this back because that was weird. Sorry, the CMC model is not showing anything for that first disturbance like all the other models, but you can see for that second disturbance does show it get decently wound up with a low pressure center, and then it moves it off and kind of dissipates it as it's getting more towards the northern Leeward, Windward Islands, Puerto Rico. And then there's also this second area of potential tropical system, and then there's this area over here. So the CMC model is also like the GFS, kind of hinting that the Atlantic will continue to stay relatively pretty busy moving forward as we head into September. And September is the actual peak month of the hurricane season, so that is pretty it's not too surprising. That's pretty standard, but with the way this season's been going, it could be to an even more hectic extent, a lot more activity, way more activity than is usual with the kind of the forecasts that's been put out for the season. So we'll just have to continue to monitor the tropics, especially through September, and then getting towards the end of the season into October, November. We'll just have to see how that plays out. Now, actually, before I show you what the La Nina looks like, I want to show you what the MJO phases are looking like. You can see the conducive MJO phase, the positive MJO phase, is starting to move out, but it is still centered over the, especially the eastern and MDR region of the Atlantic, which is currently still around this time frame, currently where we do look to see a lot of the main development of tropical systems happen. Henceforth, that's why it's called the main development region. Now, as we head farther out especially heading towards around September 10th, we go back into a sinking phase of the MJO, which typically the sinking phase of the MJO inhibits a lot of tropical development and does not allow much tropical development to happen. Though, since we are getting into September and that is the peak month, that shouldn't really limit too much of that happening. But then, as you can see, as we start to head towards getting into October, we're still in the sinking phase of the MJO, but you can see that really pretty strong rising phase of the MJO is starting to move into the Pacific, and potentially as we head towards more of the middle to end of October, we could see another kind of bit of a spike in tropical activity. So that could be something we should monitor and we should keep our eye on. But we never know. We'll just have to again continue to monitor that. Now, the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season Wikipedia page. We have had a total of 14 depressions, 13 total storms, 4 hurricanes, and 1 major hurricane. Hurricane Laura became our first major hurricane of the season. And now there have been a total of 81 fatalities. Total damage is still said to be around $6 billion, a little below $6 billion, but right around there. And you can see we've had very steady amounts of activity ever since we had Arthur way back in the middle of May. And as you can see, as we've headed into August, we've had 4 named storms alone in August now already. And we've had 2 hurricanes in August and 1 major hurricane. So that's pretty typical to see in August. You're getting a lot more of that activity getting towards being able to get towards hurricane status, even major hurricane status. You can see Laura's continuing to die out. It's a depression now. It's over the U.S., so it's not really able to do much of anything anymore. And the total damage for Laura and Marco still hasn't really been figured out yet. Though Marco, I do think, will maybe cause maybe a few $100 million in damage, but that's probably really really like extending that. I probably will be a good bit lower than that, but for right now, I'll just say that. But definitely for Laura, the total damage for Laura could definitely be a good few $1 billion in damage. We'll see. Isaias caused a little over $4.2 billion in damage. Laura definitely caused probably a good bit more than that, especially because of all that flooding and wind damage. And the fact that it strengthened all the way up until landfall, which was extremely impressive, especially with the system, especially with how in proximity to land it was, and just kept strengthening up until then. So probably will cause anywhere between, I definitely think it will cause above $10 billion in damage. So I will say probably, for right now, I'm just going to say it'll cause probably somewhere above $10 billion in damage. I'm not really sure yet. But I expect probably damage total somewhere above $10 billion. Again, this has been a crazy season so far. Doesn't look like it will generally be letting up anytime soon. Continue to make sure you are fully prepared for any type of tropical system heading your way. It doesn't matter if it's a tropical storm, even a tropical depression. Tropical depressions could cause pretty decent amounts of damage. So even keep your eyes out for that. But of course, make sure you are prepared for a tropical storm, hurricane, major hurricane. Of course, a major hurricane definitely, because major hurricanes they typically cause the most amount of damage, destruction, and fatalities. Of course, it all depends on where the tropical systems track, but you can see there's all the tracks so far of all of the systems we've had thus far in the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season. But again, make sure you are prepared, especially if you live anywhere along the U.S. coast, from the Gulf Coast and the East Coast. So again, just please make sure you're prepared between, especially now and the end of September, even into getting into October. But yeah, just please make sure you are prepared, especially with this season, how it's gone so far, with how much landfalling systems we've had, how much destruction we've had, really, with a bunch of systems. And in fact, this season is the first to see 7 named tropical cyclones make landfall in the continental United States before the end of August. So the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season through this point is still continuing to produce kind of produce records. So that's pretty crazy, and most likely will continue to do so for a good amount of time, at least over the next month or two. For the moment. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you found this pretty informative, helpful. If you liked it, please consider liking and subscribing, commenting. If you're a first-time viewer, especially consider subscribing. If you liked what you saw in this video and you like what I do on my channel, I do lots of weather-related content, especially as of right now, a lot of tropics videos on hurricane season. So if you like that, especially that type of content, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.